Daniel in the Lion's Den, a story of courage, faith, and unshakable trust. Daniel 6. Imagine a vast empire, larger than anything the world had seen. Stone palaces stretch toward the sky. Royal banners ripple in the wind. Soldiers march in rows through bustling streets, while wealthy nobles whisper in the shadows of marble halls. This is the Medo-Persian Empire, and the man seated on the throne is King Darius. And somewhere inside this great empire lives an elderly man, quiet, wise, disciplined, named Daniel. He's not a warrior, he's not royalty, he's simply a servant of God. Yet his faith is about to be tested in a way few could ever imagine. Then the king planned to set Daniel over the whole kingdom. Daniel 6 minds. Daniel ended up in Persia. To understand how Daniel got here, we go back decades earlier. Daniel had been taken from Judah as a young teenager when Babylon invaded Jerusalem. Daniel 1. He had grown up in a foreign land, surrounded by foreign gods, foreign customs, and foreign kings. He served King Nebuchadnezzar, then Belshazzar, and now, after the empire changed hands, he served Darius of Persia. By this time, Daniel was likely in his 80s. He had lived faithfully through multiple regimes, political shifts, jealous rivals, and moments when faith could have cost him everything. Through all of it, Daniel didn't compromise. He continued walking faithfully before God, and the new king took notice. Because an excellent spirit was in him. Daniel 6:3. Daniel's wisdom was different. His integrity was different. His consistency was different, and that made him a threat. King Darius decided to organize the empire. He appointed 120 governors, called satraps, to oversee the provinces. Over them he placed 3 high officials. Daniel was one of those 3. Soon Daniel proved himself so capable that the king planned to promote him again, placing him over the entire kingdom, second only to the king. Daniel 6:3. The other officials didn't like that idea. Not because Daniel was evil, not because Daniel was corrupt, but because Daniel was everything they were not. Honest, trustworthy, faithful, unbribable. They were used to power games, corruption, and backroom deals. Daniel simply refused to participate. So they hatched a plan. They searched for a flaw. They could find no corruption in him because he was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. They checked finances. They watched decisions. They even listened for rumors. Nothing. We shall not find any ground for complaint against this Daniel unless we find it in connection with the law of his God. The only weakness they could find was Daniel's faithfulness to God. And that's where they attacked. They went to King Darius with false loyalty and flattery. King Darius, live forever. Let it be written that for 30 days no one may pray to any god or man except you. Anyone who disobeys will be thrown into the lion's den. In Persian law, when a decree was sealed with the king's signet ring, it could not be changed, not even by the king himself. To the king, it sounded like loyalty. In reality, it was manipulation. He signed. The trap was set. Daniel heard about the decree. He knew exactly what it meant. He understood the danger, he knew the consequences. And yet, he didn't protest. He didn't hide. He didn't argue. He simply went home. He went into his house, and 3 times a day he got down on his knees and prayed and gave thanks to his God, as he had done before. Daniel 6:10. No dramatic speeches, no fear-driven changes. He simply kept doing what he had always done. 3 times a day. Windows open toward Jerusalem. Kneeling, praying, giving thanks. That phrase, as he had done before, reveals the heart of Daniel. Prayer wasn't a reaction. It wasn't something he pulled out when life was falling apart. It was his lifestyle. The officials were waiting. They gathered beneath his window and listened. Daniel prayed, not loudly, not defiantly, simply faithfully. And that was enough. They rushed back to the king. "Didn't you sign the decree?" they asked. "No prayers except to you?" The king confirmed it. Then came the accusation. "Daniel, who is one of the exiles from Judah, pays no attention to you, O king." Daniel 6:13. Notice how they described him, not as a leader, not as a faithful servant, but as an exile, an outsider. Their bias was clear, and suddenly Darius realized he'd been trapped too. The Bible tells us something very revealing. The king was greatly distressed and determined to rescue Daniel. He admired Daniel, he trusted Daniel, and now he'd been tricked into condemning him. All day long he looked for loopholes, legal technicalities, anything. But nothing could undo the decree. When sunset came, the men returned. "Remember, O king, Persian law cannot be changed." Reluctantly, heart-heavy, the king ordered Daniel to be brought to the den. The lion's den was not symbolic. It was a pit, dug into the ground, sealed by a stone. And inside were lions bred and kept for executions. They were hungry, savage, deadly. Daniel was led there, perhaps bound, perhaps unbound. The text doesn't specify. But we know this. The king spoke to him one last time. "May your God, whom you serve continually, deliver you." Daniel 6:16. This wasn't mockery. It was hope. A seal was placed over the stone, the king's seal and those of the nobles, so that no one could rescue Daniel secretly. Daniel 6:17. The king returned to his palace, and he could not sleep. No music, no entertainment. He fasted and worried, pacing the floor. The most powerful man in the empire felt helpless, alone in the dark. Or was he? Scripture doesn't give us Daniel's inner conversation, but we know something about faith from his life. Daniel trusted God, not because God always kept him out of danger, but because God was always with him in danger. He had faced kings, he had faced exile, he had lived through empires falling and rising, and now, surrounded by lions, there was no human hope left. But faith doesn't vanish when circumstances grow dark. The Bible reveals what happened next. "My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions." Daniel 6:22. Whether Daniel saw the angel or simply felt peace, we aren't told. But God acted. Lions that normally tore victims to pieces became silent, powerless, calm. Daniel survived the night untouched. Faith did not remove the trial. Faith sustained him through it. At the break of dawn, King Darius rushed to the den. He didn't walk. He didn't wait for reports. He ran. "Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to rescue you from the lions? O king, live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths. I was found blameless before him, and also before you." No wound was found on him, because he had trusted in his God. The king now turned to the conspirators who manipulated him. They were exposed, their hatred, jealousy, and deceit laid bare, and the same punishment they intended for Daniel fell upon them. Before they reached the floor of the den, the lions overpowered them. Daniel 6:24. This harsh outcome reflects ancient legal customs, but it also highlights something sobering. This was never about harmless politics. Their plan was murderous. And now justice came. Then King Darius wrote a new proclamation, not to cancel the law, but to declare something even greater. "I issue a decree that in every part of my kingdom people must fear and reverence the God of Daniel." Daniel 6:26. Why? Because he is the living God. His kingdom will never be destroyed. He rescues and saves. He performs signs and wonders. Daniel 6:26-27. The king, ruler of the most powerful empire, acknowledged that God's power was greater than his own. So Daniel prospered. Daniel 6:28. He continued faithfully serving, quietly, consistently, just as he always had. What this story meant then, and now Daniel in the lion's den, isn't just about surviving lions. It's about three powerful truths. Faith is about consistency, not drama. Daniel didn't suddenly become spiritual when danger appeared. He had already built a lifelong pattern of prayer. So, when the crisis came, he didn't have to decide who he was. Real faith doesn't mean easy outcomes. Daniel still went into the den. God didn't prevent the challenge, he walked Daniel through the challenge. Sometimes deliverance looks like rescue. Sometimes it looks like peace in the middle of uncertainty. God's faithfulness outlasts empires. Daniel saw kingdoms rise and fall. Yet through generations, one reality never changed. The Lord reigns forever. Psalm 146:10. Kings change, governments shift, world systems crumble, but God remains. Daniel was not superhuman. He was a man who built daily habits of faith long before the lions ever roared. He trusted God when it was easy, and when it could cost him everything. And in the darkness of a stone pit, surrounded by danger, he discovered something powerful. God was already there.